From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Chancellor was extremely precious to us, and I sat around thinking, he died on foreign soil for us, you know. He sacrificed his young life, 6 years. And a letter from the president is a little bit of closure to show us that he appreciated our son's life.
Janet Keesling's son, Chancellor, didn't get a presidential condolence letter when her son took his own life. Now Obama's reversed a policy to deny letters to families of soldiers who've committed suicide. We'll speak with Janet Keesling and her husband, Greg, in Indianapolis. And we'll go to Chicopee, Massachusetts, to speak with the father of Jeff Lucey. He, too, took his own life after he returned from Iraq. Then ExxonMobil faces mounting criticism over its oil spill that's leaked more than 40,000 gallons of crude oil into the Yellowstone River.
The place where there's oil on our property is a really diverse area with lots of diverse plant species and wildlife, and usually when you go down there in the evening, that's all you can hear is amphibians, and you know, it's frogs, it's toads, a lot of insects, crickets, and birds. And right now you walk down there at dusk and you don't hear anything.
We'll speak with family farmer Alexis Bonagovsky about the impact of the spill on our land and our health, and we'll look at how the Obama administration may approve a massive new oil pipeline called the Keystone XL that would carry tar sands oil from Alberta, Canada, under the Yellowstone River to the Gulf of Mexico. Then Texas is under international pressure to delay tonight's scheduled execution of a Mexican citizen. Humberto Leal was never told of his right to seek help from the Mexican consulate. We'll get the latest. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 14 civilians have been killed in a U.S.-led NATO bombing in Afghanistan. The dead included 8 children. The attack in the eastern province of Khost is believed to be the deadliest by the U.S.-led occupation force against Afghan civilians this year. The new killings come just one day after hundreds of people rallied in the Afghan province of Ghazni to protest a NATO bombing that killed 2 civilians earlier this week. Protesters carried their bodies to the provincial capital shouting slogans denouncing foreign troops. President Obama hosts congressional leaders at the White House today for talks on raising the national debt ceiling. According to the Washington Post, Obama is now backing a plan that would impose significant cuts to Medicare spending and retirement benefits under Social Security. A Democratic official said the White House recognizes a consensus to now tackle entitlement reform, in part by slashing social safety net programs, because, quote, these moments come along at most once a decade. President Obama's proposal of new public spending cuts would come in return for Republican backing of new tax hikes on corporations and wealthy households. At a town hall-style event with the social network site Twitter, Obama criticized Republicans for opposing tax increases in talks so far.
Never in our history has the United States defaulted on its debt. The debt ceiling should not be something that is used as a gun against the heads of the American people to extract tax breaks for corporate jet owners or oil and gas companies that are making billions of dollars because the price of gasoline has gone up so high.
In Libya, rebels have seized a key town in the country's northwestern mountains, moving them one step closer to securing a strategic road that would allow access to the capital city of Tripoli. The town of Al-Khawalish was seized after a 6-hour battle. Tens of thousands of opposition supporters filled the streets in the rebel-held city of Benghazi to celebrate the victory. Meanwhile, NATO warplanes continue to pound Libya with airstrikes. Of 140 air sorties carried out on Wednesday, NATO says nearly half were strike missions. The Greek government continues to enforce a ban on all ships taking part in the Freedom Flotilla to the Gaza Strip. Earlier today, Greek authorities stopped a small French boat that had left waters near Greece earlier this week. The halting of the ship follows the earlier blocking of the U.S. and Canadian boats as they sought to reach Gaza. On Wednesday, another ship, the Giuliano, left a Greek port where it had been forcibly moored. The ship's captain said he would take it to a different port before ultimately heading to Gaza.
Everything's ready. After the sabotage, after these very strong inspections, we are ready to departure from the place here. And the final destination is Gaza. I don't know if the next days or after those days, but our final destination is Gaza.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is warning violence and severe drought in Somalia is leading to a, quote, human tragedy of unimaginable proportions. Some 54,000 people fled Somalia into neighboring nations of Kenya and Ethiopia in June alone, 3 times the number of Somalis who sought refuge in May. Over half of children arriving in Ethiopia and up to 40% of those arriving in Kenya are reportedly malnourished. The UN is receiving increasing reports of children under 5 dying en route to their destination. UNICEF spokesperson Michael Klaus said the crisis is amplified by rising food prices.
The drought situation in the Horn of Africa is definitely one of the worst we've seen in the past decades. It's worsened by the skyrocketing food prices, which we currently see. In Somalia, we've seen increases of more than 200%. Parts of northern Kenya, more than 80% increase compared to last year, which is really very severe. We now see more or less 10 million people, as I said, in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. Some 2.8 million of those in Somalia, so that's 1 of 3 Somalis are actually in need of assistance. Malnutrition rates, particularly in the south, are really, really high. We see now that 1 in 3 children in the south are severely malnourished.
In response to the crisis, Somalia's militant Islamist group al-Shabaab has lifted a self-imposed ban on foreign aid organizations. The group imposed the ban in 2009, arguing international aid agencies were anti-Muslim. The human rights group Amnesty International claims the government of Syria may have committed crimes against humanity when it cracked down on protesters in a border town in May. The group has urged the International Criminal Court to look into the deaths of 9 protesters detained by Syrian forces in the town of Tel Kalak. Amnesty spokesperson Peter Clark said the deaths were part of a widespread and systematic attack against the civilian population. Over 1,300 civilians are believed to have been killed in the 14 weeks of protests against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Vermont prosecutors have decided not to file charges against the owners of the state's lone nuclear plant, the Vermont Yankee. Entergy Corporation had been under investigation for misleading officials during a probe into a radioactive tritium leak at the plant in 2010. Vermont Attorney General William Sorrell said he believes Entergy held back information, but said the case lacks sufficient evidence to ensure a conviction.
As of now, no criminal charges will be filed against the corporation or any Entergy employee. Entergy and certain of its personnel have acted in, at best, an untrustworthy manner. However, we lack the smoking gun evidence to prove to our satisfaction, let alone that of 12 Vermont jurors, that this untrustworthy behavior was criminal.
A federal appeals court has ordered the federal government to stop enforcing the law barring openly gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals from serving in the U.S. military. Pentagon officials have said they will comply with the order and are taking steps to inform commanders in the field. A U.S. Army psychiatrist charged with killing over a dozen people and injuring scores of others in a Texas Army base will face a military trial and could receive the death penalty if convicted. Some 56 witnesses have described Major Nidal Hassan as a calculated killer who lethally gunned down 12 soldiers and 1 civilian and wounded 32 people on November 5, 2009. As many as 6,600 prisoners in California have joined a hunger strike in solidarity with inmates at the Pelican Bay State Prison, protesting what they say are cruel and unusual prison conditions. Located in Crescent City, Pelican Bay was California's first supermax security prison. Prison officials say thousands of prisoners at 13 state prisons refused meals over the 3-day July 4th weekend. The strike continues this week with at least 2,100 prisoners still taking part as of Wednesday. And New York City has announced it'll open city offices on Sunday, July 24th to allow gay couples to take advantage of a new law allowing same-sex marriage the day it takes effect. Judges will be on hand at city clerks' offices in all 5 boroughs to officiate over the proceedings. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.